All right. Welcome everybody. This is some fun stuff. I want you to notice on the screen, we're going to open this up for questions and comments shortly, but I wanted to start with a photograph. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a picture with commentary, can you imagine what that's worth? This happens to be a photograph from ADD MS 41294 from that dossier in the British Library. And what this is, you'll see my cursor. I want you to notice we have 3 fragments. This, by the way, is an actual photograph of the fragments. So this is real important to kind of set the pace, set the stage for what we're going to talk about. And if you remember, and I'm going to hold this up, this is my little prop that I use. That's what you're looking at here, except that this is an actual photograph. So I'm going to make a couple of observations here, and I'll do my cursor just so that you can see a few things that I'm pointing out. This, by the way, I'm following the top of this particular fragment, and you'll notice a piece from the one behind it. So this is folded in half. This is a 4-column fragment folded in half. So you're looking at the back side of 2, and the other one is the other piece of the 4. You'll notice that we have a fold mark here. When Shapira acquired the manuscripts in 1878, they were already folded. There's a discussion in our book, The Fragments of a Leather Manuscript, where the scholars are debating whether or not this was an original feature of the manuscript. Was it always folded? Did the Bedouin who came to possess them in 1865, did he fold them? You know, and they go back and forth. Where Goethe believes that it is an original feature, and Meyer said he didn't think it was. He thought that this was something that happened later. Well, and I can't say much about this yet. What I can say is that there is an article that's coming out in the very near future that is going to solve this. And let me just say that this article, I've been shared an advanced copy of this by a very good scholar who says that this is actually an original feature of some of the other Dead Sea Scrolls, that these fragments were folded rather than rolled. So that's coming. But notice we have here and we have here. By the way, the top and the bottom fragment are the same fragment. So I want you to notice. Now, these don't come with labels. This is just what you get from looking at this stuff for 6 years. Notice this piece here and look down here. You'll even notice the lines, the wrinkles in the leather. Look up here. You have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A lot of other similarities. Here's a crease here. Here's a crease here. These are the same. This one is just slightly zoomed in. I want you to notice here is a hole, here is a hole. We only have a few holes noted in the transcriptions, and the way we know there are holes in the manuscript, this actually takes a part of the word out. This is not uncommon in the Dead Sea Scrolls. When people make transcriptions of the Dead Sea Scrolls, you'll sometimes notice in their transcription it says hole. This could be caused by insects or, any number of things, probably insects. Now, I want you to, again, notice the arch. This is very important in determining the authenticity, because the fact that it's bent, one of the arguments against authenticity is that this was cut from an existing synagogue scroll, whereas this proves otherwise. We have various Dead Sea Scrolls that have this same feature. And one of the articles that I've linked to is by Shlomo Gil, and he wrote, I think the title of his article is the Shapira Scrolls or an Authentic Dead Sea Scroll, something like that. It's that direct. And this is one of the evidences. Now, notice in the middle piece, so we have one fragment here, which I'm telling you is fragment, it's been identified as fragment E. You'll understand this more in a few minutes. I'm going to show you a chart. This piece here is a single piece. Notice the deterioration on this side. It's very brittle. We've read enough reports to know. And notice here, anybody have an idea what that is? That's evidence of where this fragment was sewn to another fragment, and so it's been separated. So we have some that are single fragments. This would be an example of that. This photo is just cropped at the bottom, and this is another photograph. So it's actually a photograph on top of a photograph, this lower one being a zoom of the upper. All right, I wanted you to see that, and then we'll talk more about it. By the way, notice all the wrinkles in the leather. It's very wrinkled up. One of the reports that I have from the 1800s is an expert looked at this, an expert in Bible and scrolls, and they didn't have the Dead Sea Scrolls. But one thing that he noted is that the leather was much thicker, he said, than what you typically find in Dead Sea Scrolls. He didn't say in synagogue scrolls, sorry. All right, I'm going to stop the share for just a moment. Now, that's one example of the documents that I'm going to share today, but I wanted to get to that first, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to be sharing quite a bit on this subject matter over 2026. This photograph, no matter how much you try, we've zoomed in, we've used different tools, you cannot discern any lettering on this particular photograph. But if we could find the plates from the 19th century, and we think, I'm going to bring Tabor up in a minute, we actually think that might be, it's one of the things on our hit list right now, is to spend some time in the British Museum, like British Library, I'm sorry, looking through boxes, like in the back. We just need, I've already made contacts. I know some people there. Shimon Gibson is very connected with everybody in London. And he's a friend of the cause, let's just say. I won't speak for any scholars in there unless they've told me, yes, say, I believe in it. But he certainly is interested in reevaluating these scrolls. And he happens to be sort of a what we call a Shapira maniac, is what I think our name is. James, you want to come up? You want to jump in for a minute?
Yeah, I didn't know my speaker was off, or did you just turn it off?
I turned
My
it on.
microphone, I mean.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, because I was typing. I didn't want to disturb. Yeah, I can't stay long. Sundays, a lot of times we have, like, everybody comes over in the family and all the dogs and all. But I did get to hear Ross, and I really appreciated the review. I wanted to say two things. One's just reacting to what Ross just said about the possibility of these glass plates. It's interesting the way our team has come together because Shimon Gibson, whom you might know as one of the most respected archaeologists in Israel, British citizen, Israeli green card professor at UNC Charlotte, where I retired from, has one of his many what would you say, Ross? Hats of expertise. I mean, he's got about 20 on his head. Uh, he knows 19th century history like you know your own family history. And I mean, like he could say, oh, Lawrence of Arabia wrote Sir so and so and eight, whatever. And this is what his wife wrote back. He's just got this encyclopedic knowledge of 19th century history. Guess what? He supports the authenticity, right?
Hmm.
As Ross has said. And so does Charlesworth,
Yeah.
but which is another, we have so many stories. Someday let's just have a Zoom on Shapira and tell the stories
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're all kind of remarkable. And I'm going to tell you one in a minute. But anyway, guess what that other hat is out of his archaeology, history, on and on and on. Biblical studies. It is photography, the history of photography.
Hmm.
Plus, he's British. Plus, he worked for the PEF as head of their archives and publication, I believe, for like a decade.
Yeah.
So imagine we know him. He's on our team. So not only does he can walk into PDF and say hello to everybody, as Ross can and David Tyler and Patty and several. I haven't been over there yet for that. So so he said these glass plates, if we can find them, and they're probably in the British. They're either in the library or the museum. I forget which way we're leaning now. We had an email on that recently,
Yeah.
but they're in London, and some copies were shipped to Clermont-Ganneau in France, but I don't think the plates. Just from
Right.
what I understand, either way, the plates. Shimon said you could blow them up the size of my back wall
Yeah.
with no loss of resolution because it's a light photography, not a digital photography. So it's not going to pixelate. Now, on top of that, there's RTI photography that we're doing on our ossuaries now and other things that some of you know about that follow my work. And that will pop those letters out. I mean, there are different kinds of lighting techniques. They've already tried it with some of the Dead Sea Scrolls from 47 through 54. And all of a sudden, you see these faded letters. And recently, I was in Israel and we used it on the Talpiot tomb on the facade to see all kinds of things. And then we did 3D inside. And the guy who did it for his name is Shai, let's see, Shai Cohen. How about that for a name?
Yeah.
So Shai Cohen, who does the RTI for the Israel Antiquities Authority, he did it in the upper room that's all been plastered since Crusader times
Hmm.
and could look beyond the plaster and see graffiti.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Just because of the light infractions and so forth. I don't understand the technicalities, but anyway, so those plates are a possibility. Now that still wouldn't prove the antiquity, but you know what Ross would do after having a heart attack? And then I would go visit him and he could recover enough. He would just be like looking letter by letter to see, oh, yeah, now I see that that's a game. Oh, wow, that changes. You
Yeah.
guys would just go crazy for like a month.
At least.
So here's the other thing, and then I got to go.
All right.
Besides Kazak to Ross and to all of us. Um, Actually, one more thing, and then I'll do the other thing. I'm almost done. If you're going to buy one of the books, you buy Ross's. Why? Why? Because Dershowitz is free.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
So
That's
if you
right.
buy a book, you buy Ross's, but please read Ross's first. And then you get the free book that would cost $80 or $90. Why? Not because Ross is my friend. Idan's my friend too. I just met him in Boston. We spent 2 hours together talking about this stuff at the SBL. Because Ross gives you the story. He writes it like I write my books. Even though the material's dense, it's like, oh, wow, oh my God, I'm at chapter 3. I want to quit, but no, I
Yeah.
got to go on. I got to do 2 more chapters. I swear, you will see. If that doesn't happen to you, then you have other interests, or you're not the kind of person that can hardly sleep thinking about historical problems and
Right.
texts and ideas and this and that. Every day's so exciting, isn't it? Okay, third thing then. And this, I'll put it in the chat before I sign off. But there's a odd mystical side to this call it serendipitous, call it miraculous, call it chance, call it whatever. The way the universe vibrates, I have no idea. But we've all experienced these things in our lives, right? Just convergences and so forth. So if you don't know the significance of Kislev 24,
Hmm.
not 25, 24, the night before Hanukkah, when we heard about the shootings,
Yep.
right? 9 days ago now, 10 days ago, back on Sunday. So the day before that is Kislev 24. Now, you can do one or two things, but I'd suggest you do them both. Read Haggai. It's short enough. I don't need to say read the
Yes,
last.
two
Read Haggai.
chapters.
Read Haggai and pay attention to the phrase the 24th day of the ninth month, the 24th day of the ninth month. You go like, oh my goodness, what is this? Now, there's material in Zechariah, but that's very complicated. Haggai will do it. Now, it ends with what scholars would say is just a wild prediction that, boy, everything's going to come now and the redemption will come from this day forward. But please remember, Hanukkah's that night,
That's right.
okay? The night of the 24th, on our calendar at sundown. So you're still on the 24th, and that was Sunday, okay? Hanukkah is how many years after this was written? No, I didn't cause that to happen,
Yeah.
but the cleansing of the temple. Now, you could say, well, probably there was no cleansing of the temple. There never existed Maccabees, and they wrote it because they knew Haggai said it, and anyone would believe 300 years later. First of all, nobody would even think of that. If
Right.
you want somebody to believe your prophecy, you don't make it 300 years from now. Like
Yeah.
300 years from now, I'm talking about living people going through it. But anyway, so I'll put in the chat or the chat it's called the link to the article I wrote for the Times of Israel about, let's see, the title is, because I want you to see this. Hanukkah, yes. Okay, that's written on Hanukkah. Hanukkah, yes. But what about Kislev 24 in history? I'm not
Hmm.
going to tell you anything else. You read it. And this is not in the article because I would never believe it could happen because I'm not a world figure. I'm not involved in anything major. And the day I got Tigay's book, hold it up, Ross. You got it right there.
Yep.
The day I got that book, I read it in one day and it came at 3:33 in the afternoon. I wrote it down. 3:33 in the afternoon, delivered by Amazon. Ross, I don't know exactly when you got yours.
I
Next
got,
day, I think
yeah.
we were maybe one day apart. And it was Kislev 24. We lit the candle that night, as I recall. Now, I just looked it up in the calendar. The date I marked as Kislev 24, 3:33. So that's when I had heard about it. You can read my preface to Ross's book, but I would have just said what I said to my students for 40 years. Oh, that's an early forgery of a kind of Dead Sea-like scroll, but it's nothing like our Dead Sea scrolls, and it was declared a forgery. In fact, most of us, when we talk, we say, Shapira, we go, you mean the forger,
Yeah.
Shapira? You mean the forger, Shapira? That's become his name. Boy, talk about against Torah.
Hmm.
If you slander a person like that, you've killed them. And by Torah, I'm saying teaching, but
Yep.
it is in the written Torah. If you slander a person like that, you've actually taken their life. And some of you have experienced that with evil people, right? That tell lies about you. You don't drop dead biologically, but anyway. So that's all I knew. But from this day forward, you're going to see that phrase, our quest started.
Man.
Now, does that mean we're Allenby going into Jaffa Gate? No. It does mean that somebody we honor, David Horowitz, made his encounter with Gabori on that day, and he had no idea anything about it. I figured that out later by getting his passport and figuring out what day it was. So there's a few little things like that happen with Waco, with other things we've done. So anyway, this is public Facebook, and at the risk of being labeled a delusional fool, I'll just say read the article. But either way, in other words, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, isn't it one of, it's sort of like something happening on your birthday or something, isn't it interesting that we would find, Ross and I would both begin to study the Moses Scroll on Kislev 24. Well, it's been 7 years, and boy, we've tripled our knowledge, I would say.
Lots new has
We've
happened.
tripled, more than double. So I just went for triple. We've tripled our knowledge. So isn't that something?
And
So we'll,
don't forget, this was funny because I sat down at my desk to write out, my focus points for 2026. And, I do that every year. I
oh
look at
yeah,
the
I
the
forgot
list,
that.
and James called, and at the top of my list, I'd written Shapira, just the word Shapira. And he called and said, "Hey, this person, Allie, has asked on my Patreon about, if she wanted to talk about Shapira, if she wanted to kind of get to know what does the text say." And so I thought, man, this is great because I'm going to be talking. I said, I could even do a class on the text and so forth. Well, then it hit me later. Like, it didn't hit me then, but that was actually, again, we're right here at Kislev 24. So I thought, wow, look at the date. So, I mean, what are the chances? I mean, it's pretty slim. I mean, somebody might say, well, you guys just try to find something in everything. And maybe there's some of
I
that,
don't try to find anything. In
but it's
fact,
it's amazing.
I kind of don't like finding things. So, like a family name's Arimathea lives over the Talpiot tomb. I sort of didn't want to find that out.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's too preposterous to believe it's true, but it is true.
Well, one of the
What do you
things
think about
Shapira
that?
said over and over is in his personal journals, he said, but it's too good to be true. Like he actually said that exact phrase. I mean, what are the
Yeah.
chances? But yet here we are, and
I
70
think there's
years
just
later.
like convergences. I don't even have an explanation. I think it could be very scientific. I don't look for lightning bolts or anything, but we don't know exactly how our thoughts and our energy work in the universe and how it might connect with somebody. You say, "Oh, come on." I don't know. I don't even know what consciousness is. But some too many times people connect on the same wavelength by chance. I mean, there's so many stories of that. So
Well,
whatever happens, happens. I ended up in David Korsh's apartment in Jerusalem when I went after the fire to get away from Waco and have nothing to do with it because I was so grieved. And the night I arrived, I ended up in his apartment because I ran into a rabbi who invited me for Sabbath dinner. And first thing he told me is after we did the prayers and so forth, Dr. Tabor, you might not know it, but the place we're in here is where Koresh lived during his time in Jerusalem studying at Eshat Torah. And
yeah,
I go,
it's just a chance, James.
I almost fainted. And then he said, and you're sitting in his chair because it was furnished and we gave you the captain's chair. Kind of the one with the rail. I thought, get out of here. I gotta go. So, okay, I'll put that link in and good to see you
All
guys.
right. Thanks,
Let's
James.
find it this year.
Hey,
Okay.
I'm hot on some. I'm going to talk about some of the clues
And
right now.
later give some of the secrets away.
Oh, I am. As soon as you get off, I'm going to tell them.
As soon as YouTube stops, because we can't
Yeah,
have
that's
people
right.
we
That's
can't
right.
have anyone beating us to it.
That's right. Okay, so let's jump back in. I want to show a couple of more slides before our YouTube audience leaves. And the first is these slides are going to help make a little bit of sense of what we talked about in the session today. This is just a slide to show you sort of, all right, you mentioned there are 16 leather strips. Just starting at the top here, see, I have 5 singles, meaning these at one time were connected, and then you have 2 sets of 2. These are fragments with 2 columns. Each of these represents a column of text. So you got 5 singles, you have 2 fragments. This is a fragment with 2 columns, and I have 2 of those. And then I have fragments with 3 columns of text, and I have 5 of those. 2 fragments with 4 columns of text, and 2 fragments with 5. Now, let me help make this make a little more sense, because I want to show you how we know how these manuscripts go together. So the next thing I want to show you, let me pull this up. And these have been revised since the Moses scroll came out. So I just want you to see, of the 16 fragments, just in my illustration here, I've arbitrarily, this represents fragment A. It was a single column of text. And if you move to B and then C and then skip down, here's D. What the transcribers in the 19th century told me is, here's what A says, letter by letter, line by line. I carefully have noted any discrepancies between the transcribers, but I know what it says. I know that B is written by the same scribe. Remember, I mentioned that there are 2 manuscripts. A, B, and C are all from the same hand, and each of these manuscripts, I know I have a manuscript that typically has 10 lines per column, and A, B, C all have 10. So let's call this what Edan called valediction, VA. This is manuscript A. When I go to D, I know that that follows this fragment. And don't think that this is going to be, we don't know what this one is, because we don't have a record of everything. All we know is there are 2 manuscripts. So then you go D, A, B, C, then E. This is the one you saw today. I'm going to show it again in a moment. This one actually begins in A. It contains the Shema, Shema Israel, Elohim, Eloheinu, Elohim Echad. And then it follows with the 10 words, which are unique to this manuscript. Now, F, notice F. This is something that's interesting. Once you get to F, it's a different scribe. And even this piece, I can't, not just me, the people who were looking at the manuscript couldn't make out. They knew it was a 4-column strip, but this was unreadable here, here, and here. And A, you couldn't tell what it said. Now, here's what I'm so happy about. I'm not a Harvard Society fellow. I'm a guy. Like I'm just a researcher. But when I was reading, trying to make out the few scattered letters on F, I noticed a phrase that I just happened to know because I'm such a nerd about Deuteronomy. And the letters that I saw spelled mi-yitain. Mi-yitain. Well, I mean, you have to be a real Bible nerd for that to mean anything. But in Deuteronomy 5, when the people cry out against, they're just scared to death, it's after they witness the giving of the 10 words, and they say, don't let God, I'm paraphrasing, don't let God talk to us anymore, Moshe, you go to him, you tell us, and we'll do whatever he says. And God says in Deuteronomy 5, he uses the phrase, mi-yitain, which is typically that phrase, and the words around it are translated, oh, that they had such a heart in them as this, that they would keep my commandments always, and so forth. So I said, that's it. This fragment, I didn't have Edan Dershowitz. I didn't know, and in fact, Ginsburg doesn't even bother to translate fragment F. He just says, I can't read it. Meyer only reads a few little bitty words in there and not even complete words. So I'm happy that we cracked this. We're still working. Until we find the actual fragments, this is going to be a mystery. Now, when you get to G, A through E, you're dealing with the blessings and the curses rolling into HA and HB. So I want to show you one more, and then we're going to maybe open up and get a few questions here, because some of you may have some questions. If not, I'll keep going, because this is my passion. And here we go. I'm going to show you this slide here. Okay. If you notice on this one, this shows how we put together one manuscript out of the 42 columns of text. You have A, B, C, D. Remember, it's right to left in Hebrew. I have 3 columns in D. Here is my fragment A of E. Fragment E with column A has the Shema, then the 10 words. Then we get into F, which we can't really read. Jono Vandor and I have worked on this. This is one of the biggest problems. This is like the most fun thing you can imagine. And we basically have determined that B, C, and D overlap with the beginning of G, but it's from the other manuscript maybe. We're trying to figure this piece out. So it doesn't feel like there's a ton missing. I just thought of a clue while I was saying that. Hold on a second. I got to work on this a little bit. See how this stuff happens? I can be watching the news and think of a clue on Shapira. And we know for certain that A in this manuscript is the beginning of that manuscript. And the reason we know that is because of what I said. The witnesses from the 19th century tell us about number of lines and author's hand. And it starts, these are the words that Moses spoke, right? And the HB we know is the end because it says these are the words that Moses spoke. So that's the beginning and the end. All right. Now, let me pull down the photos, and what I'm going to do is we're going to tell our YouTube audience, if you're part of the Yachad, you need to join the Zoom call, and if not, stay tuned, and we'll see you next week. But if you don't have that Zoom and you're part of the Yachad, you're one of our supporters, make sure you hit me up. I want to get into a little bit more and do some Q&A with our YouTube, with our Zoom call. So until next time, hey, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being part of what we're doing here, and I'll see you next week.